was the last week of school, and everyone was buzzing with excitement for summer vacation. The only thing standing between us and freedom were the final exams. My best friend Mark and I had been studying like crazy, especially for our chemistry exam. Mr. Thompson, our chemistry teacher, was known for his tough tests and no-nonsense attitude. On the day of the exam, I woke up feeling a little off. I had a nagging headache, and my stomach was in knots. I figured it was just nerves. I grabbed my backpack, said goodbye to my parents, and headed to school. The weather matched my mood, dark, cloudy, and foreboding. As we entered the chemistry lab, Mr. Thompson handed out the exam papers with his usual stern look. "You have 2 hours. No talking, no cheating," he barked. We all nodded, and the room fell silent except for the sound of pencils scratching on paper. About halfway through the exam, the lights flickered. It was unusual, but I didn't think much of it. I was too focused on the complex chemical equations in front of me. Then the fire alarm went off. We all jumped, and Mr. Thompson tried to calm us down. "Everyone stay seated. It's probably just a drill," he said. But then, the intercom crackled to life, and a voice we didn't recognize spoke. "This is not a drill. Everyone remain calm and stay in your classrooms." Panic began to spread through the room. Mr. Thompson tried to reassure us, but the fear in his eyes was unmistakable. We heard heavy footsteps in the hallway, getting closer. The doorknob rattled, and a tall man in dark clothes and a mask burst into the room, brandishing a knife. "Everyone stay where you are," the man shouted. "If you cooperate, no one gets hurt." We were all frozen with fear. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, trying to reason with the intruder. "There's no need for violence. Just tell us what you want." The man pointed the knife at him. "Shut up and sit down," he yelled. Mr. Thompson obeyed, and the room fell into a tense silence. The intruder started pacing back and forth, muttering to himself. This wasn't supposed to happen. They said it would be easy. He seemed agitated and unsure of what to do next. Mark, who was sitting next to me, whispered, "We need to do something." I nodded, but I had no idea what. The man was armed, and any sudden movements could provoke him. Suddenly, the school's security officer, Mr. Garcia, appeared in the doorway. "Put the knife down and step away from the students," he commanded. The intruder turned towards him, panicking. "Stay back. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will if I have to," he screamed. Mr. Garcia slowly advanced, trying to keep the situation under control. "You don't have to do this. Just put the knife down and we can talk." The intruder was visibly shaking. He looked around the room, realizing he was outnumbered and trapped. "I just wanted to make some quick money," he muttered. "This was a mistake." Taking advantage of his distraction, Mr. Thompson made a subtle signal to Mr. Garcia. In a swift, coordinated move, Mr. Garcia lunged at the intruder, knocking the knife out of his hand. The man struggled, but Mr. Garcia managed to subdue him and call for backup. The police arrived within minutes, and the intruder was taken into custody. We were all shaken but unharmed. Mr. Thompson and Mr. Garcia were hailed as heroes for their bravery. In the days that followed, the school provided counseling for students and staff affected by the incident. It took a while for things to return to normal, but the sense of community and support helped us heal. Mark and I finished our exams, though the chemistry test was postponed until we were ready. Mr. Thompson showed a rare moment of leniency, understanding the trauma we had experienced. That summer, as I reflected on the events, I realized how fragile life can be and how quickly things can change. The incident had brought our school closer together, and I developed a newfound appreciation for the people around me. I still keep in touch with Mark, and sometimes we talk about that day. It's a reminder of our resilience and the bravery of those who protect us. And while the memory of the intruder still lingers, it has also made me stronger, more aware, and more grateful for every moment of peace and safety. The fall semester was in full swing, and the excitement of the new school year had started to wear off. It was just another ordinary Wednesday at Redwood High School, and my friends and I were slogging through our classes, counting down the days until the weekend. My name is Alex, and like most students, I had my favorite classes and those I dreaded. English was one of my favorites, mainly because of our teacher, Mrs. Hendricks. She had a way of making literature come alive, and her classes were always engaging. On this particular day, however, things were different. As I walked into the classroom, I noticed a stranger standing by the desk. A man in his late 30s, with unkempt hair and a serious demeanor, was writing his name on the board. Mr. Darrow. "Good morning, everyone," he said in a monotone voice. "Mrs. Hendricks is out sick today, so I'll be your substitute." Mr. Darrow wasted no time in starting the lesson. He handed out a pop quiz on the book we were reading, To Kill a Mockingbird, and instructed us to work in silence. His presence was unsettling, and the room felt colder with him in it. About halfway through the quiz, I felt a strange sensation, like I was being watched. I glanced up and caught Mr. Darrow staring directly at me. His gaze was intense, almost predatory. I quickly looked back down at my paper, my heart racing. After class, my friend Jenny and I walked to our next period together. "Did you notice anything weird about Mr. Darrow?" I asked. "Yeah, he gave me the creeps," she replied. "And did you see the way he was watching us? It was like he was studying us or something." Over the next few days, Mr. Darrow's behavior grew increasingly bizarre. He seemed to take a particular interest in a few students, including me. He would ask odd, personal questions and linger around after class, watching us leave. One afternoon, I stayed behind to ask about an assignment. As the classroom emptied, Mr. Darrow closed the door, trapping me inside with him. "You're a very bright student, Alex," he said, his eyes boring into mine. "Do you ever feel like you're different from everyone else?" I guess," I replied, uneasy. I quickly made an excuse and left, my mind racing with questions. Jenny and I decided to do some digging. We went to the school office and asked the secretary if she knew anything about Mr. Darrow. She shrugged. "He was sent by the district. That's all I know." That night, we searched online for any information about him. After hours of scouring the web, we found something unsettling. A news article from a nearby town detailed the disappearance of several high school students. One of the last people to see them was a substitute teacher named Harold Darrow. My blood ran cold. "We need to tell someone," Jenny said. The next day, we went to the principal, Mr. Carlson, and showed him the article. He was skeptical but promised to look into it. As we left his office, I noticed Mr. Darrow watching us from down the hall, a knowing smirk on his face. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "Stay out of my business, or you'll regret it." Panic set in. How did he get my number? What was he planning? Jenny and I decided to confront Mr. Darrow directly. We stayed late after school, hiding near the classroom until he was alone. As we approached, we heard him talking to someone on the phone. "Yes, I understand. The targets will be ready soon." We burst into the room. "Who are you really?" I demanded. "And what are you doing here?" Mr. Darrow hung up the phone, his expression cold and calculating. "Curiosity killed the cat, Alex," he said, stepping toward us. Fear surged through me, but I stood my ground. "We know about the missing students. We know what you're up to." He laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the empty room. "You think you know, but you have no idea." Suddenly, Jenny pulled out her phone, showing that she was recording everything. "The police are on their way," she lied. "It's over." Mr. Darrow's face twisted in anger. "This isn't over," he hissed, before shoving past us and disappearing into the night. True to her word, Jenny called the police. When they arrived, Mr. Darrow was long gone. They took our statements and promised to investigate further. The school was in an uproar the next day, with police presence and news crews swarming the campus. Mrs. Hendricks returned, pale and shaken, but unharmed. She thanked us for our bravery, but the experience left a lasting mark on everyone involved. While Mr. Darrow was never found, the police uncovered evidence linking him to the missing students in the nearby town. It seemed he had been targeting students with exceptional talents for reasons still unknown. Life at Redwood High slowly returned to normal, but Jenny and I remained vigilant, always aware of our surroundings. The incident brought us closer, and we vowed never to let our guard down again. As I write this, I can't help but feel a lingering unease. Mr. Darrow may have escaped, but the fear he instilled in us remains. We survived, but the shadows of that encounter will haunt us for the rest of our lives. The day started like any other at Westfield High. I was sitting in my last period, history class, struggling to stay awake as Mr. Thompson droned on about the Civil War. My mind was wandering when the intercom crackled to life. "Attention, students and staff, this is a lockdown. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." My heart sank. Lockdown drills were routine, but this was different. The tension in Mr. Thompson's voice as he instructed us to move to the corner of the room was palpable. We huddled together, whispering anxiously. I checked my phone. Texts from friends flooded in, each one more frantic than the last. Rumors spread like wildfire. Someone had seen a man with a gun near the gym. Others claimed to have heard shots. I glanced at my friend, Emma, who sat next to me. Her face was pale with fear. Mr. Thompson locked the door and turned off the lights, casting the room into a dim, eerie silence. We could hear muffled sounds from the hallway, footsteps, doors opening and closing, and then a blood-chilling scream. My phone buzzed again, a message from Jake, who was in the gym. "There's a guy with a gun. We're hiding in the locker room. Stay safe." I showed the message to Emma, her eyes widening. The room was deathly quiet, every small noise amplified in the tense atmosphere. The minutes felt like hours as we waited in the dark, listening. Suddenly, we heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. The door handle rattled, and we held our breath, praying it wouldn't open. The intruder moved on, and we let out a collective sigh of relief. But our relief was short-lived as the sounds of chaos continued throughout the school. Mr. Thompson motioned for us to stay silent. He crept toward the door, pressing his ear against it to listen. The tension was unbearable. Then, we heard it. A loud bang, followed by more screams. It was coming from the classrooms down the hall. I could feel the panic rising within me. My hands were trembling, and I struggled to keep my breathing steady. Emma squeezed my hand, her grip tight. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, though her eyes betrayed her fear. Another bang, this time closer. The intruder was methodically making his way through the classrooms. I could hear my classmates whispering prayers, some silently crying. I checked my phone again. No new messages from Jake. The uncertainty was agonizing. The footsteps returned, stopping right outside our door. The handle rattled again, more forcefully this time. We watched in horror as the door began to open. Mr. Thompson threw his weight against it, slamming it shut just in time. The intruder pounded on the door, shouting indistinguishable words. My mind raced. We couldn't just sit here and wait. I remembered the emergency exit at the back of the room, normally used only for fire drills. I signaled to Emma and pointed towards it. She nodded, understanding. Mr. Thompson was still struggling to keep the door closed. I motioned for the others to follow, and we quietly made our way to the emergency exit. One by one, we slipped out, trying to stay as quiet as possible. The emergency exit led to a narrow staircase that descended to the ground floor. We moved quickly but cautiously, our footsteps echoing in the confined space. When we reached the bottom, we found ourselves in an unfamiliar part of the school, an old storage area filled with unused desks and chairs. We paused, trying to get our bearings. I checked my phone again and saw a message from my mom. "Heard about the lockdown. "Are you safe? Please reply." I typed a quick response, telling her we were okay, but still inside the school. As I hit send, we heard a noise behind us. We turned to see a shadowy figure moving among the stacks of old furniture. Emma grabbed my arm. "We need to keep moving," she whispered urgently. We navigated through the maze of furniture, hearts pounding. The storage area had another exit, leading to the outside of the building. We could see the daylight streaming through the cracks in the door. Freedom was so close. Just as we reached the door, the shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. It was the intruder. He was holding a gun, his face twisted with rage. "Where do you think you're going?" he snarled. Panic surged through me, but I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I grabbed a metal chair and threw it at him, hitting his arm. The gun clattered to the floor, and Emma kicked it away. We bolted for the exit, bursting out into the daylight. Outside, police officers were swarming the campus. They saw us and rushed over, ushering us to safety. I looked back to see the intruder being tackled to the ground by an officer. Relief washed over me, but the fear still lingered. In the aftermath, we learned that the intruder was a former student, expelled years ago for violent behavior. He had come back for revenge, but thanks to the quick response of the staff and the police, no one was seriously injured. The school was closed for a week, and counselors were brought in to help us cope with the trauma. It took time, but gradually things returned to normal. Yet the memory of that day, of the fear and the danger, stayed with us. And every time I walk past room 306, I can't help but feel a chill, remembering how close we came to tragedy.